what these conversations do. But tell me
Absolutely.
a little bit about it, because like doing a little bit of reading, I think it's like 2011 it started. But
So
yeah,
sure, man. My entry point was 2011. The band had been going for a few years at the local level, with a prior personnel, essentially, right? With our guy G, who is still like, he's really the founder of the band and continues to be the leader of the band. At that time, you know, his buddy Ryan Marshall, and at that time the original drummer from G's older band, Pete Kirkwood. So they were a trio for years, did their thing, you know, in the GTA, doing the bar circuit, doing the thing. Their kind of biggest break at the time had been a couple dates on Warped Tour, which, if anybody knows what that is, it was a big look for many years, until I think they just recently, in the last few years, hung it up. So that was the early days. While that was going on, I was on a straight line to music school, actually. My whole life in music, starting with piano, getting into my angsty teenage years and wanting to be a rock star, and getting into guitar, and then just kind of landing on drums almost by happenstance. I was pursuing this kind of educational path at that point because I didn't want to do anything else. And I was lucky enough to have parents that were down to support me wanting to go into this thing that almost certainly wouldn't go anywhere and get me a job just by the numbers, right? Like, I feel like it's so many kids, like all my buddies wanted to be in Blink-182 or Green Day. And that was like, you know, those were our gods, you know, and like, it's how great. I'm more grateful as time goes on that I had parents who supported that, because there I was pursuing this education path and saying, wait, you can go to school for music? Like, let me at least try that. So giving that a shot, realizing not until I got there that music to me was always a journey best discovered, a path best traveled with my buddies, and not necessarily. Art school is a weird thing, man. Like, it's getting in a room and saying, hey, be creative under these measures, and we're going to give you a mark for that. Right. Like, people love to say art is so subjective. Right. So it's the idea of someone saying good job or bad job is such a funny thing. Right. And really, when I look back and I think about it, music school helped me. The real value of music school to me was it showed me what I didn't want. Because sure, I saw the path that was, yep, we could do this. I could maybe wind up teaching, or who knows, try to freelance around the city, which I did a good amount of right here in Toronto, a bit of that, and knew that wasn't the vibe for me. So one thing led to another. I got a chance to actually go on a very small tour in Europe with a local singer-songwriter. This would have been 2010 maybe. And that completely, every issue that I had about music school was answered when I got a chance to just go out there and see Europe for the first time and really enjoy it. So that was a moment. And then coming back to school after that, I was like, this is not the vibe. I'm going to bounce. Went back home to Burlington, Ontario. Had always known about Woat from coming up in smaller bands and getting a chance to share stages with them and stuff. But I'd never actually gotten in touch with the guys until a mutual friend, a buddy that I went to high school with, a trombone player, Tyler Norton, had done a few Warped Tour shows with them. And at that time, Pete Kirkwood was just about to leave the band, the original drummer. So enter me, and getting a chance to chat with G. And at that time, like, Woat had just started doing YouTube, and like, I think there was like 3,000 subscribers total. Right. And, and essentially getting in, chatting with G, saying, hey, you know, we're doing this thing. Like, we're starting to kind of do this YouTube thing, because, like, you know, all we've known up until now is we're going to pile into a van and just try and like hit the open road and try to get people interested in our music. But here we are. This is right after, like, our buddy Justin Bieber from down the road had shown what YouTube could do. Right. So like, something was clearly starting to happen there. And there was like 5 videos on the channel, like just a couple of G goofing around and a couple of the original 3 there. And, you know, just dove in and just kind of went hard for a year, just doing the local circuit and trying to make fun videos and cool content. And man, one thing led to another. And literally about a year in, just a bit over, we found ourselves in Johnny's kitchen doing that 5 people, 1 guitar video. And man, we just recently, a few months back, celebrated 10 years since that video went out. And it has been such a blur, but such a privilege, such an honor, and truly grateful to still be doing it despite a whole bunch of ups and downs along the way.
Like, honestly, I wanted to show you this, like, on my phone, but I got to be careful here. But this is like, so when people say like Canadian content, like, I think you can see it. Look, I actually went out and bought it.
Hey, killer, man.
Yeah. Appreciate and then you see Scooby-Doo,
love
you
it.
see some Neon Dreams, some Valley. So it's like, you know, if it's a good song, but I feel like Instagram and Twitter, or not, well, Instagram and TikTok in a way have kind of helped that, because
oh yeah,
I'm not going to lie. Like, if you had, like I said, YouTube helped me find you, but then it's like after a while you're kind of like, all right, I'm dipping out. But then Instagram brought it up where I'm like, all right, cool. And then it's like, hey, you see stuff on Instagram where people take someone's sound clip and they use it over and over again.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, like the song Sunroof. Like, I don't think Sunroof is getting over without TikTok and Instagram using it constantly. So when I see people's video and like you share it, so obviously your fan base appreciates that. But when I see whoever runs the account, and even if you or Sarah,
it's always been us.
Like whoever shares it of someone using the song Bet On Me in a video, I'm like, all right, so they're not only here just basically saying, check out our song. They're basically like, you as the fans are using our song. We're going to share your video so that all our fans can see that, hey, this is our song. You like it. Like, I actually really like the rapping part as well. And that kind of got me to check out him as well, which is exposure. The exposure for him. But like, there are certain lines in that where I'm just like, damn. It's like Mike, like it's like 23, like when Mikey was on Nike. I'm like, who comes up with that? Like I'm just sitting in my room, like I mess that up constantly because I'll say when Nike was on Mikey, and I'm like, that's wrong, it's wrong. And I'm like, it's clever lyrics. And then I find now a lot of musicians today are like they refer back to a different, like, you know, like 80s or 90s stuff, whether it's the style they play or referencing it in songs. Like, I remember the first time I listened to like a Jay-Z song, and he's like, I think he said, which mic do you want? It's like, you can have Jackson, I think it's like Jordan, Game 6. And I was like, I know these references. I feel like this is my genre.
Nice.
But now when like you're listening to this song and you're like, I know who that mic is. I know who they're referencing. But there's probably like a generation out there like sings it and you're like, do you know who that mic is? No, they're probably just talking about a buddy named Mike. I'm like, no, go away.
They're singing the tune, they love the tune, but they actually don't know what they're
like when we were kids, you sing Genie in a Bottle and you're like, I don't understand, and then like later you're like, oh my god, you let me away with singing that song. What was wrong with you?
I know. Mambo number 5, like, whoa. Now we're living in an era now of cross promotion and collaboration, and it's almost a necessity. And it's funny that you mentioned that 1% class, the Ed Sheerans of the world, that may not necessarily have to. They still do. I'll never forget G showing me a little interview clip where Sheeran was like, I had a full-on meeting with my team where it's like, what's our TikTok strategy? And you see the Charlie Puths of the world, right, living on TikTok, and he almost started this kind of open verse trend, right, with his tune Light Switch. He had a song that was a trending sound worldwide before the song even dropped. So what a brilliant marketing scheme to not to just use your existing organic following, and maybe, you know, you're growing it the whole time along, to get people excited. By the time the thing hits the radio, it's an instant number one because you've got millions of people that are already using it, that are already singing it, remixing it, the whole thing, right? It's just so true to that ever diminishing attention span and that need to want to, just that kind of low barrier of entry. Like when we first got into Twitter and first got into Facebook and stuff, everyone was talking about how, oh, you're just one, you know, your fans can send you a DM, your fans can whatever. Yeah. Now your fan can literally duet your video and you're probably going to see it, especially when you're saying, hey, do an open verse for us. We got so many great submissions as part of that. We just also happened to get one from a Grammy winner who is this guy that we didn't even know that D-Smoke had won the Netflix show Rhythm and Flow, the one with Cardi B and Chance the Rapper and stuff. He won that, which you should check out. He's brilliant on that. He just happened to come across it because the algorithm, the thing that we're all us creatives are a slave to, happened to treat us right that day and serve that open verse challenge to our guy D-Smoke, and he came up with the most fire verse, and that's how songs are made in 2022, man. It's so crazy.
It's funny because it's like now, even with the world that you live in, it's like even if you wanted to go back, like I know you have different versions of it coming out now, but it's like even if you did want to go back and say to a fan base, hey, like I know you like D-Smoke song, but like here there's an audience that like Tyler Shaw's version, so here's a Tyler Shaw version as well. Like it's like you can release it and then there'll be still like there's still an audience for it. Like I kind of think it's like the way social media is today.
Can I just quickly tell you something, because that's the second time you mentioned Tyler. I don't know when this is coming out, but it's fine. This will be the first time it goes out there. We just finished cutting the Tyler version last night. So
nice.
We are. It's so funny because you're like, what? We just did that. So you saying like, yeah, there's other good versions. Yeah, that the Tyler smoked it, and we just got final vocals from him last night. Our guy Tokyo, our engineer, was just cutting them in today, and it's sounding great. So we're gonna do kind of like almost like a special Canadian release with Tyler on it because he killed it so hard.
I want to ask you, because now you guys were at the Junos this year.
Yeah.
Now you won it in 2016. Yes. But like now for this year, it's interesting because there was like, I think it's like the children's album.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And like I want to ask you a little bit about that, because I'm trying to like, you know, ruffle feathers here as well, but obviously it's G's kid. And like, you know, they're doing this album. Like I see sometimes on the page, it's like, all right, I think is it Romeo?
Romeo, yes.
Yeah, so it's like Romeo tries this food or blah blah, and they do. And I'm like, you know what? That gathers an audience in itself. Maybe not for me, but I will tune into it and be like, all right, how does this kid eat a lemon? It's like, you don't like a lemon? I'm with you. That's it. Like it's like I'm not gonna comment. Like you got it, Romeo. But like, it's something. But like, how do you feel about going into like a whole different kind of genre or wave there? And I think he was like the youngest one to be nominated for
youngest ever. Yeah.
And like I feel like I'm a big Splash and Boots guy as well.
No way.
I feel like because I have a niece and nephew that got me into Splash and Boots and the Wiggles and all this. But like, it's just funny. Like, how do you embrace that? Because I mean, there's people out there like, listen, we branched out because hey, a kid came into our life and we liked it. And there's others that's like, you know what? We've got a lot of kids that like our music, so let's like kind of give them their own little thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure if like All Time Low was like, you know what? One of our bandmates had a kid that loved our songs, but we're gonna make it more to their genre, like to their
right.
So like, was it kind of that dynamic? And like, how did you take it? Were you like, screw you guys, I don't want to drum to this?
So man, it's interesting. Like it's definitely not. I mean, I feel like we have so synonymized our brand with anything goes to the point where like we've covered Iron Maiden and we've done like we've covered the whole gamut. So when this came up and we saw an opportunity, because Romeo, if you're not aware, for anyone listening is unaware, this kid will try like the weirdest foods in the world, and most kids just like they need sugar at all times, right?
Yeah.
This kid will try the weirdest, most bitter, strangest, smelliest stuff, and is like basically a carburetor. He'll take it all. But when it came time to think about the music side of things, we thought, hey, what if, you know, obviously, yes, we do have that younger audience that we can tap into. People all the time tell us like, you guys are my babysitter. I just put on a YouTube playlist and I just let it go. We said, hey, you know, the actual sort of subject matter or even just like composition and style of the kids' music that's out there, we think we can add something different to that. And if you check out, you may not have had a chance to check out the songs. We did every song. There's a song for every episode for every food that he tries.
Yeah.
We produced them up like we produced Woat songs. So like a lot of them are these like really dense, like kind of like ballsy productions that just so happen to be the soundtrack for a kids program, right? And some of them have Romeo's vocals and stuff. So I think venturing into that area and seeing what might be possible there, but also making sure that it's still true to our workflow and our process, I think was a cool thing. And I'll never like, man, we've scratched so many surfaces over the years and we've dipped our beaks in so many ponds that like, we're down for everything. And like the vibes are so good these days that anything goes. I should mention as well too, that like, as the years have gone on and as other opportunities have come along, now the three of us have kind of been able to branch out in other areas, whether a side project, like I have an electronic project that's very different than what most people don't know that I like. That's some of my favorite music is like earthy electronic stuff, and like even just other business ventures and stuff. G operating a label these days called Golden Carrot. Sarah doing like some kind of momfluencer type stuff and having a whole with the kids stuff. Me actually most recently getting really deep into Web3 and the more tech side and exploring everything that's going on with non-fungible tokens and metaverse tech and this sort of stuff. It's early days, but it's a very exciting space. Case in point, me going to VCon. You know, just having a chance to support one another through these different ventures. And of course, for those guys, they've become such a family entity with 3 children now. Absolutely, what I never say, hey guys, this is weird. Let's keep on track here.
Yeah,
embracing those creative differences or stylistic differences or anyone wanting to kind of try out a different lane, I think is part of the reason why 10 years on, we're having more fun than we've ever had. Right?
I want to ask you, because again, to kind of close it out, like maybe 2 more topics here, but like Mike, or like, I feel like it would be kind of very passive of me to not mention him at all, but I want to ask you, because you did mention, of course, about losing your mom as well. Like, take me through that.
What a time. And the 2 polar opposite scenarios. My mom diagnosed with brain cancer and had actually a year to the day of time left, which, as much as that initial hit of the news is so tough, man, you know, it's I feel like everybody knows someone who had a situation where they didn't have a year of lead time. For us to know, obviously it's a horrible thing, and it's the amount that I've changed and the amount that we went through as a family, and the whole thing is awful. But to at least, I mean, kind of brings back this whole thing that people talk about sometimes, where it's like, if you could find out your moment, your time, would you want to know? And just to know that what the prognosis was, it was 14 months rather was the prognosis, and 14 months to the day she went. So to know there was a situation where we had lead time, and I was able to kind of restructure my life around making sure that time could be there, versus a Mike where, so man, it was the 30th. Was it the 30th of December? And he had passed the night before. We didn't know this yet. I wake up the morning of 30th December. We're heading up to Niagara Falls to do the New Year's broadcast.
There you go.
And I'm about to leave. And for some reason, I woke up that morning, and my mom was getting bad. We knew she was getting close to the end. She was starting to ask, like, when are we going to the hospice and stuff? Like much as the cancer had kind of really sort of decoupled her from reality, she had moments where she was like basically asking us, like, when is it going to be time, because I feel like it's soon. So I just woke up with this weird feeling, and I was like, I'm going to check my dad's location. And I checked my dad's location. I'm actually from Paris, Ontario. I checked it, and he was at the Brantford General Hospital. And I was like, okay, something obviously happened there. And right as I was about to call him and see what was going on, Johnny called me and said, hey, have you left to head up for sound check yet? And I said, no. He said, well, don't. And here's why. And then he dropped the news on me. And that's where everything happened. And then, so I called my dad, and he said, actually, you know, your mom last night had finally kind of had enough. And she basically, it's an interesting thing. When she reached her point of like, I can't take this anymore, my dad loved her to the point where he didn't want her to leave that home. So she knew that my dad would have had to been dragged out of there kicking and screaming, and as would she have. And that's actually what she never really actually mentioned this publicly, but she actually kicked up a big stink to the point where she had to be removed from the home, actually fastened to a stretcher and removed, because she knew that's what it was going to take. Because this fucking guy loved her that much that he was just like, I'm going to keep you here, you know, until the end. He wanted her to be there right to the end. So that was her putting up her hand and saying, I've had enough. So the same day that I got the news that my bandmate passed suddenly out of nowhere the night before was the same day that was the beginning of the final stretch of my mom's life, where she freaked out. They took her to the Emerge. They dosed her huge with Ativan, and she was out. Essentially, she was in a coma there through the next 9 or so days until she finally passed. And right around that time was when we had the tribute concert for Mike in Burlington, which the Bare Naked Ladies came out, the Arkells guys came out, the BNL guys coming was an incredible moment. And just like, you know, but just the obviously that being me being like, okay, this is clearly the bottom. Like it's I just lost my bandmate suddenly, and my mom finally, after a year of the biggest ups and downs I'll hopefully will ever encounter. I just lost these two things. This is what the bottom feels like, right? And then just that rebuild, man. And like I was saying, like I've been kind of saying throughout this whole chat, like those moments that really just stop you and say, hey, this could happen. Doesn't matter if you're busy and you're planning the next months ahead and all this sort of stuff. Life, whatever you believe in, whatever you believe dictates all this stuff, can just out of nowhere say, hey, by the way, none of this is promised. None of this is guaranteed. And that has fortunately really stuck with me to the point where, like, my partner Carly and I will regularly just tell her, I'm just grateful for today, because everyone's happy. No one's, you know what I mean? Everyone's happy and healthy. That's something to celebrate, which I think, of course, people take for granted until they start to have those moments where it's like, oh, I'm not invincible. And these people around me, you know, you always hear about it happening to someone else, but it can happen to me too. Yeah. What a moment to realize, like, the impermanence of it all, and to really just, I think I certainly, speaking for myself, was guilty of getting swept up in it all prior to. And if there was to be a silver lining of going through great loss like that, whether sudden and unexpected or whether not sudden and very much expected, that silver lining is I'm forever changed by that, and will forever be grateful for the small, simple things that I feel like prior to most people take for granted, who are in a position that's, you know, you're fortunate to have a roof over your head and the sorts of things that we're able to be fortunate for. It's easy to take that for granted. And so you have one of those moments where it's like, actually, you've been lucky until now, or you know what I mean? Or you're still going to be lucky and fortunate in lots of ways. But by the way, anything can change in an instant. So just make sure, you know, I try to relay that to people, but you see it in people's face when you tell them that like, I can be that. I can go on this emotional thing and tell them that and say, oh, you're not close with your mom. Call your mom. You need to, you don't understand. You have to value the time. You can see it in people's face where it's like, okay, like realistically, they need to experience that themselves for them to really get that feel for it. But I feel like even just putting it on people's radar to say, like, you know, it's hopefully you don't want, it's a bittersweet thing. You don't want the person to have that moment, but you know that if they're going to have that moment, there's going to be quite a few life lessons in there that hopefully will allow them to, in the midst, come out of a negative situation with kind of a new light or a new set of positive outlooks on the world, this sort of stuff, right?
Now, I want to ask you to kind of close the whole conversation out here. Is you guys are getting ready to go on tour. Yes. I want to ask you, like, how, because I know we kind of expanded on it throughout the whole conversation here of, like, you know, the pandemic, meaning relative to the pandemic. I'm like doing like a synopsis here. Like, so, like, but it's, you get to go back on tour. You get to go now see live crowds again. Like, how exciting is that for you? And like, I guess a little bit of an interesting kind of aspect of when did you decide this? Because right after Junos sounds like a great time to do it, where it's like, we did the Junos, people see us at the Junos, or they know we were there. And then it's like, now, all right, let's go back out into the world again. Let's do touring. But like, how excited are you for that? And how did this all kind of come to be in terms of choosing like the places and the dates?
Right. Yeah. So in terms of routing, like there's people like, you know, this first stretch of dates is going to be stateside. So there's people, we have a different US agent than our guy, Ralph in Canada, Ralph James, who's kind of like the guy. But yeah, like it's that stuff gets pitched to us, right? So it's we really can only say we're into it or we're not into it, right? So and this is, we're about to play Bud Stage next month, right? And it'll be our third time postponing that show because of COVID. So it's almost like, is it really going to happen? Like, you know what I mean? You start to see headlines of COVID popping back up.
You were like, you were the Leafs of round one when it comes to the Bud Stage.
Yeah. So hopefully third time's a charm there. But yeah, I mean, I'm just stoked to actually get to it because there's been so much of that. There's been so much postponing and rescheduling to the point where just getting back on a tour bus again, it's going to be like, oh wow, we're really doing this now. And you know, our first show's in Cleveland, and then a few more in Ohio, and then we go to New York to do Carnegie Hall, which is going to be amazing. And just we're thrilled. Like there's nothing, I think every music lover in the pandemic realized, whether on stage or in the audience, there's nothing that replaces that live show energy. And we've had small little teases. Like back in September, we did a California run. We went down and did an awesome festival called Bottle Rock, which was very much our first time back doing that. California had kind of like done away with the mask mandates and stuff, and we got like an early preview of that. We did that. We did a Napa show. We did a San Francisco show. That was a little tease, but this is going to be really the first time we're actually like traveling together on the bus and like really doing it. So it's going to be awesome. And it's a relatively short run for that very same reason, because as soon as you rent buses, as soon as you say, "Hey crew, we're gonna pay your daily wages," you're on the hook for that, right? So we to start small, because we have everybody we know that tours a lot more than us has been burned by this, right? So to start small, do a few things, a few kind of more statement plays with the Bud Stage and with the Carnegie Hall. Hopefully they all go well. Then we can get, you know, maybe we can look to Europe and this sort of stuff. We're just really stoked to do it. And we're putting together the new live show where you mentioned Sunroof. We're actually putting together, and all this TikTok talk. We're putting together, because we've had some success with some of these ones. We're putting together. People have always enjoyed these mashups that we've done, whether a mix of our own tunes or the covers that we've done that people really enjoy. We're putting together a TikTok mashup right now that's actually all on we have this crazy thing called the Guy Harpalele that these people made us. It's literally a 3-headed monster that's part bass. It's a harp bass, it's a ukulele, and it's a 6-string guitar, and it's got a bunch of percussion and cool engravings on it. So the whole thing is going to be centered around our Guy Harpalele, which we've done a few videos with and songs on as well. But this is going to be this brand new moment in the show, and just putting together a new live show. I do a lot of the kind of arranging and just basically logistics of how our shows run and this sort of stuff. And just getting back in that has been exciting enough on its own to actually take that and to craft this show of ours and actually take it out and to see people's faces, and just that enjoyment and that shared energy experience that is live performance and nothing else is something that I can't wait for. that being said, we got this amazing dog now, and I love my girl and stuff. So coming home is always a great feeling. I got to be honest and say that I'm glad that we're in a position where, especially with G and Sarah and the kids and stuff, we can't really road dog it anymore. Like there was a time where we would go out for a couple of months at a time, and we would love it. These days, both because of what I was mentioning about the amount of opportunities when we stay at home, but also the family stuff and all that, we aren't really able to go out and do these longer runs. But to that point, we can make the absolute most of these shorter runs and have a blast while we're doing it, and not know that we're not going to be out there long enough to the point where we're going to start nitpicking each other for leaving socks out in bunk alley or this sort of stuff, you know?
Yeah. That's what you want, like the headline to read, like, you know, like, oh yeah, walk off the earth breaks up because so-and-so didn't put away their socks. I'd be like, that's such a Canadian story, because
they made it through all this actual insanity, and then that's what did it. The sock that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, it's like Oasis breaks up because of song differences. Blink-182 breaks up because of like Mark and Tom just have, and it's like Walk Off the Earth breaks off because someone forgot to put their socks away. But like, why do Canadians are so like? Why are we so cool yet so dorky?
Yeah. And then I could see that being a real thing for some men.
Toronto Star posted, it's like, we sat down with JC and JC said, and it's just like, I sat down with JC and JC said, and then they're like, yeah, but you're a Toronto Star. I'd be like, what do I gotta do to get attention around here?
That's gonna do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Joel Cassady for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening, and good night.